The East End of London had a certain kind of silence at night, the kind that wasn't peaceful, but tense. The streets glistened from an earlier rain, the puddles catching the weak orange glow of flickering street lamps. Somewhere in the maze of alleys, faint echoes pulsed through the damp air, heavy thuds, short grunts, and the occasional cheer. Jason Statham moved quietly down the street, his black wool coat pulled tight against the cold, a plain gray sweater underneath, dark jeans, and heavy black boots. His head was slightly lowered, but his eyes scanned everything. Tonight wasn't a night for aimless wandering. He had a purpose. 2 days ago, he had heard whispers about Mason Ironjaw Kane, the reigning king of the city's most feared underground fight pit, the Forge. Undefeated, built like a human tank, known not just for winning, but for humiliating his opponents. Word was, Mason had beaten a young man so badly in his last fight that he'd been sent to the hospital. No one was going to press charges. Fear made sure of that. But Jason had never been the type to walk past trouble when he could stop it. The entrance to the Forge was disguised as the back door of an abandoned auto shop. Jason approached it slowly, the smell of oil and rust lingering in the cold air. 2 massive doormen stood outside, both thick-necked, tattooed, and dressed in leather jackets. Jason stopped in front of them, saying nothing. He didn't puff his chest or try to look tough. He just stood there, meeting their eyes. There was no challenge in his expression, but no hesitation either, just a kind of stillness that felt dangerous in its own way. One of the doormen squinted, about to speak, but something in Jason's gaze made him think twice. With a grunt, he stepped aside and unlocked the steel door. The moment Jason stepped inside, the world changed. The air was hot, heavy, and smelled of sweat, beer, and that faint metallic tang of blood. Dozens of people crowded around a square of bare concrete, lit by a single buzzing overhead lamp. Shouts, laughter, and the clink of exchanged money filled the air. In the center of the ring stood Mason Kane. He was a mountain of a man, 6'4", thick slabs of muscle covering his frame, tattoos crawling up his arms and across his chest. A jagged scar ran from his right ear to his jawline, a badge of violence from some forgotten fight. His eyes were dark, but they carried a glint of arrogance, the kind that came from knowing you could hurt anyone in the room and walk away smiling. Jason leaned against a rusted steel column near the back of the crowd, hands in his coat pockets, just watching. He didn't blink much, didn't cheer, didn't bet. Mason's current opponent was a wiry man, with blood trickling from his split lip. His guard was low, his knees shaky. The crowd chanted Mason's name. Mason smiled a cruel, slow smile, and then launched a right cross that smashed into the man's jaw. The poor fighter crumpled instantly, hitting the floor like a sack of bricks. The noise was deafening. Mason walked a slow circle, raising his arms to drink in the adoration. Then his gaze swept the crowd and stopped on Jason. Jason didn't look away. Mason tilted his head, smirking. "What are you staring at, old man?" he shouted over the noise. The crowd quieted slightly, sensing something brewing. Jason said nothing. Mason took a step closer, his voice mocking. "You got something to say? Or you just here to watch me turn men into pulp?" Jason's reply was calm, his voice low but cutting through the noise. "You've got strength, but all I see is wasted motion." A wave of ooh rippled through the crowd. Mason's smirk faded into a glare. He dropped his hands to his sides and pointed at Jason. "Get in here. Now." The crowd surged with excitement, people shoving forward to see the stranger who had just insulted Mason Kane to his face. Jason took his time. He unbuttoned his coat, folded it neatly, and handed it to someone at the edge of the ring. Beneath it, his frame was lean but coiled, the body of a man who didn't train for looks, but for precision and survival. The crowd formed a tighter circle, the single lamp above casting harsh shadows across the concrete. Mason bounced on his heels, eager to crush this unknown challenger. The makeshift referee barked for them to start. Mason came out like a bull, throwing a looping right hook aimed to cave Jason's skull in. Jason moved just enough to let the punch slide past, his feet barely making a sound on the concrete. Mason swung again, faster this time, but Jason parried the shot with his forearm and answered with a short, stabbing punch to the ribs. Mason grunted, his eyes narrowing. They circled each other, the tension thick. Mason exploded forward, throwing a rapid flurry, wild, heavy punches that could crush bone if they landed. Jason's head and shoulders moved like water, letting the strikes miss by inches, his eyes never leaving Mason's. A sharp counter jab snapped Mason's head back. The crowd gasped. Frustration crept into Mason's movements. He lunged for a clinch, hoping to muscle Jason into the corner. But Jason sidestepped, caught Mason's arm, and twisted. Mason stumbled forward, and in one fluid motion, Jason swept his legs out from under him. The big man hit the floor hard. The crowd roared, some in disbelief, others in delight. Mason scrambled up, his pride burning hotter than the pain in his back. He came in again, trying to overwhelm Jason with sheer force. Jason slipped under a wild right, drove an elbow into Mason's chest, then stepped in close, so close that Mason couldn't swing. Jason's knee came up sharply into Mason's thigh, deadening the leg. Mason staggered, and Jason pivoted, hooking Mason's ankle with his foot and dropping him flat again. This time, Jason didn't back away. He stood over Mason, calm as ever, breathing steady. His voice was low, but every word carried weight. Power's nothing without control. Keep fighting like this, and one day, you won't get up again. Mason's chest rose and fell rapidly. His face twisted not just in pain, but in something worse, the realization that he'd been completely outclassed. His voice came out rough, almost broken. Enough, please. Jason took a step back, eyes still on him for a long moment, then turned and walked through the crowd. No celebration, no gloating, just quiet authority. Outside, the rain had started again, soft and steady, washing the blood from the streets. Jason pulled his coat back on and disappeared into the night, leaving behind a room full of people who had just learned that true strength didn't need to shout,